and welcome to another day on Cornwall Pocket Farm, where I try and figure out how to live sustainably on 300 square metres in the city. And it's a beautiful sunny day. We've had several days of sun. It's bizarre. We don't know what to do. As Aucklanders, we're stunned. I thought what I'd talk about today is where I find extra space in my garden. I have a tiny garden. I mean, as you can tell, I have 300 square metres in the city, and at least 100 square metres of those are covered by the house. And then when you take out paths and concrete and bits and pieces, my garden is really quite small. So I have to work very hard to find all the little bits of space to make the best use I possibly can of the, well, I like to think of it as land, the land that I have available to me to grow my food on. Industrial agriculture is one of the most damaging things that we have. So if I can grow it here on my little patch of land, then, you know, it's a win, basically, in my book. So I have to be quite creative about what I do, and I thought I would show you the different techniques that I employ. If you think about the theory of this, essentially, sounds very grand that, but realistically, plants need three things. They need light, they need soil, and they need water. So I think sunlight really is the key thing there, because to some extent you can put soil where you want, really, and watering, obviously we can water our plants if we want to, you know, we can put in irrigation, those types of things. So the limiting factor there is sunlight. And so what I do is look at where the sunlight is on my land. And I did a video actually, ages ago now, but it was the middle of winter, and I actually did a video at 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock and 3 o'clock during the day, just videoing around my garden and finding the light, finding where the light fell. So theoretically, anywhere I have sunlight, I can grow plants. The other technique that I use is to try and get as many things crammed into the space that I do have. I suppose this video is going to be about finding extra space, but also how to utilize the space that I have so that I can get more things in. Yeah, let's put it like that. That's what we're going to do today. So come with me and I'll show you around. So pots, of course. I grow some of my fruit trees in pots. I have these 2 dwarf lemons in pots, and they produce a lovely crop. I also have an olive tree in a pot. I have strawberries in a pot. I have a whole range of things. It's quite an obvious one, but just I found it's quite amazing what you can get in them. We live in an area that can get quite dry in the summer, and I found that large pots are the way to go. If I have really small pots, they dry out just too quickly in our climate. So I have to have the larger pots, and I also find that if I put my pots near my front door, then I remember to water them. So what I do in the summer is I have a large plastic bucket which I put in our shower in the mornings. Because our shower is quite a distance away from our hot water system, it takes a little while for the hot water to come through. So in the morning I put a bucket under the shower, turn it on, and then wait until the water goes warm, and then we remove the bucket and obviously have a shower, and that bucket of water then is what I bring outside to water my pots. And that's a little system that works really well for us. So the pots out here get watered daily in the middle of summer. They do well, and we don't waste the water that would otherwise just have gone down the sink waiting for that temperature to come up. Okay, so this is a Mayer lemon that I'm fan training along this piece of fence here. The idea is that it'll create a bit of a screen for the chicken coop. It can take advantage of the nutrients that obviously are in the chicken coop for its growing. So hopefully it should be nice and healthy and vigorous. It will take up a very small amount of space because I'm fan training along this space, and it also will get plenty of sun. It's a nice sunny spot here, and I'm just training it as it grows against the fence, just tying it in quite gently. Okay, so this is my chicken coop. I also call it my orchard, because what I'm doing here is basically overlapping 2 functions within my garden. So the chickens actually are, I think, originally forest-dwelling birds, and they like that tree cover to feel safe and secure. So what I can do in this space is grow fruit trees in the same space that I have my chickens and my chicken coop. So in here I have almonds, I have apples, I have my avocados, and I also have my fig up there. So this piece of space here is doing double duty. The other thing you can do with buildings such as this chicken coop or a shed or a garage or anything like that is actually to grow something up and over it. So you'll see here I've trained this vine to come up and along the side of the chicken coop. It gets it off the ground, it allows it to me to grow something in my chicken coop without the chickens actually eating it. So again, if you elevate something in a chicken coop, you can grow it, you can take advantage of that sunlight, also providing the shelter that those chickens need, doing double duty. And of course, we can't forget my brand new planter that I've created. So underneath here I have my rubbish bins, and I have created a shallow planter on the top of the rubbish bins, which I'm going to grow kumara in, and at the moment also have garlic in. So this is created for me, I don't know, probably over a metre of extra growing space. It's got great sun and now it has soil. So yeah, I've made a planting growing area out of essentially something that was just the space I kept my bins in. So that's a win. And next to my new kumara planter, I have these pots where I grow blueberries. Blueberries like a particular sort of soil. And so it's better if you grow them in pots where you can put in the soil that they like and not in the ground in my case, because my ground doesn't really suit their growing conditions. So pots work brilliantly for blueberries. And I have my indoor garden. So in my indoor garden I can grow things like these chilies. I'm hanging my bananas, I have peppers, aubergines. I've tried growing all sorts of things in here, and early in the season I actually put tomatoes in here as well. So an indoor growing space, if you have a sunny windowsill or a little entranceway like this, anything where you've got a bit of sun and you can put some planters and keep them watered, that also works. And I have my espalier, so it's a little bit like fan training, but you keep them in layers. So this is an apple and a pear. I have another apple and a pear there. I also have a fan trained quince over there, and I've got some apples and pears along the back of my growing beds. So I've got quite a number of plants that I've actually espaliered. Again, I can grow them in a very small amount of space. I don't have room for massive trees, but I can get a good variety of fruit that will crop at different times in the year. So espalier is very easy to set up. You can just look on YouTube. There are endless videos about how to espalier fruit trees, and it works a treat. They take up very little space. So in the winter I have a shadow cast by this fence that I have along the front of my property, and the sun comes in at an angle, and so I've discovered that basically if I put a hanging basket here, it's up in the sunshine, whereas the bed below it is actually in shade. Also, I found that if I put peas and beans and those sorts of things in the soil at the moment, the slugs and snails will eat it. So putting it in a hanging basket like this works really well. We have enough rain at this time of year that they don't dry out too much, and it's a great way to grow my peas. These will trail over the edge, and I've actually got mange 2 in this one, and I can do them in succession. I've actually just recently bought a new hanging basket for the other side because this is working so well. This used to be a pathway all the way up to this side going to the sink, and I realized that I actually didn't need this full width for my feet because I don't take a wheelbarrow or anything up here. I only needed a very narrow amount of space. So I actually built out these 2 very narrow little beds, and these are great beds to grow salad. In the winter, when I have things climbing up this structure, this stays quite shady, and so it's very good for crops, you know, leafy greens that like things a little bit cooler. Even these tiny little areas, this is only 20 centimeters wide, but it's amazing what you can get in a little narrow strip 20 centimeters wide. So you might wonder what you're looking at now. Well, what I'm showing you now is Crystal Palace. This big structure that we've built through the middle of the garden. This is made out of old recycled timbers that came out of the house when we did our renovation, and we basically just cleaned them all up and used that free timber just to create that structure. This structure in the middle is designed to have climbing things growing up it. So when I plant out my garden beds, I put my climbing things, my pumpkins, my squash, my beans, all those types of things that want to go up or can go up, I put them along this structure, but it means that instead of having things trailing on the ground taking up valuable space, I'm using that vertical space and going up as much as possible. So this is my pergola. This pergola is part of my passive solar design, so what that means is in the winter, like now, when it has very few leaves, the sun is streaming into my house and warming up my house. But in the summer, when I don't want my house warmed up, this will all be leafed up and provide wonderful shade. It also, of course, provides fruit. They're delicious grapes, Albany Surprise. We have 2 very vigorous grapevines here, and I'm hoping that next year they're going to provide quite a lot of fruit. This year, I actually pruned back all the fruit because I wanted them to concentrate on growing and covering this space. But next year, certainly this one, I will let fruit. So that'll be interesting. But yes, growing space in the air. And this is my strawberry planter. This is just an old wheelbarrow that I found on the side of the road, and I filled it up with some compost that I'd made in the chicken coop, and it grew strawberries for us all last year. And down here, I have my berries. It's quite poor soil down here, but all I've done is I've selected plants that don't mind that soil that's not the best, and they also don't mind the partial shade that I get down this little side alley part of my house. So I can still grow food here if I just select the right plants that don't really mind. I have a dwarf feijoa in a pot down at the back, so again, more growing space down there. So here just used to be lawn. Up there was a concrete path, but the rest of this just used to be lawn. And that really is an environmental desert. Nothing really lives in lawn, apart from the invasive kikuyu that was in it. It just required mowing all the time and wasn't really doing any use. So the lawn is gone, and now we have turned it into food producing area. So in my view, a much better use of the space that was previously just lawn. So this is not a particularly beautiful part of my garden, but I just wanted to show you this because this is an old carport. The previous owners used to have a car here and a car there. And now what I do with it is I grow in buckets. I just use this. I grow potatoes, I grow lettuces, I do my seedlings here, I grow yams, kumara, all sorts of things just in buckets. So even if you just have some concrete, you can make a really good use of this space for growing as well. Again, great sun in the winter. In the summer this whole thing is bathed in sunlight, but in the winter of course we get this part here in sunlight. The ultimate plan is to have a greenhouse here. That's what I'd really like to do when the funds allow. So a greenhouse here would mean that I'd have a whole heap of extra growing space that would also mean that I could extend that growing season to some of the crops that maybe I can't grow now outdoors. The greenhouse would be a boon in that respect. But yeah, I still grow things on my carport. And this is my food forest. So I have this funny little bit to the side. This is, as I say, the old carport, and there's this funny little bit of ground that really wasn't doing anything at all. What I've done now is I've planted some fruit trees in it. I have fruit trees, I have strawberries, passion fruit, lemongrass, rhubarb, New Zealand spinach, and I also have bananas in this area. So this tiny little bit of space grows a lot of, oh, I forgot the elderberry, an elderberry plant as well. So this little area here grows a lot of food. And I'm hoping you can see this. I'm squashed in the corner here. But what we've done here for the bananas is we've made a little raised bed out of old bits of concrete that were broken up paths from the rest of the pathways when we took them out. And we've made a raised bed. So essentially this dwarf Cavendish banana here grows out of what is essentially a raised bed that's maybe it's a foot high. Obviously it's on the ground below that, but we raised it up out of the ground just so that we can put lots of organic matter in and really also just contain this banana grove, shall we say, so that it doesn't spread and take over. So this plant is a Chilean guava, and the reason that it's planted here is because when I looked online I found out that this plant will fruit in shade. So here it's pretty shady. It gets a little tiny bit of sun now and again, but mostly it's shady. And it seems to be happy. It's happy and healthy, and I do have high hopes that it's going to fruit. This is thyme. So in between my little pavers, I shall call them, that I've made out of broken up concrete, I've planted little herbs. So I have thyme and oregano and all sorts of things between the pavers. So it's essentially a path where you walk down. It's also a food producing area. Okay, well I hope that's been helpful to you. And just some of the ways that I grow lots of food in my tiny space. I do actually have big plans to put a vineyard in my garden, but you'll have to watch and see how I do that in another few videos. One of the tips would be, have a look at where your weeds are growing. Have a look at what nature does. Find all those little cracks and crevices. See where you have unnecessary grass, shall we say? Because remembering the only restricting factor really is that sunlight. You can always put soil in pots, you can build plant beds, you can do all sorts of things like that. Old wheelbarrows, for instance, you can do all sorts. See if you can go up, see if you can use the structures that you already have in your space, and then also see if you can overlap functions. So if you've got a particular area that does a certain thing, like store your bins, can you grow in that space as well? Think of yourself flying over the top of your garden and see, if you look down, you were that bird and you look down, have a look at where the sun falls on your property. It's quite challenging to grow in shady spaces, but even that can be done. Some plants like shady places. So for instance, leafy greens in the middle of summer, they like shady places. I put a Chilean guava in my side garden because it fruits in shade. So think about the types of plants you can also put in the different areas that you have. I hope that's helpful and given you some ideas and fired you up to kind of look at your space and see what you can do to increase your growing space. And let me know if you have any ideas that I haven't thought of, things that I could do. Please put it down in the comments, because I think it's really important that we all learn from each other. I've learned heaps of people on YouTube, and I like to return the favour. But if you've got some ideas, please put it down below. That would be very helpful. Okay, well, bye, and I'll see you next time.